Dan il-podcast joffri spazju fejn il-mistiedna jesprimu l-ħsieb personali b'mod liberu u responsabbli fuq suġġetti varji, mhux neċessarjament ikun hemm qbil mal-opinjonijiet tal-mistednin. Għalhekk nistiednu lill-udjenza sabiex tevalwa l-argument miġjub u bl-ebda mod ma jsir attakk personali fil-kummenti. Hija l-intenzjoni tal-produtturi li dan il-podcast ikun spazju fejn il-libertà tal-espressjoni tiġi dejjem imħarsa b'responsabbiltà u b'rispett sħiħ.
Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Thank you, Patrick, for accepting our invite. Today we have Keith presenting with me.
It is my honor to be here. Thank you very much for both of you for inviting me, and I look forward to this very interesting discussion.
Patrick, the highest level, the high-ranking priest of the Church of Lucifer. Can you tell us a bit about yourself and about the COL, please?
Certainly. Obviously, the COL is a 80-year-old institution now. It began in America under the patronage of Reverend Stills. Following Reverend Stills, he took under his wings Freddie Cook, and Freddie Cook inherited the Church of Lucifer from Reverend Stills when he died of cancer. Freddie Cook took Luciferianism, or brought Luciferianism to the world for the first time ever. You know, he brought it to the mainstream media, he brought it to the mainstream, to the people, and it was something that people started talking about. Of course, in those times, there was a lot of things going on, like the satanic panic and everything else, and all the kind of hysteria that was surrounding what was mysterious, occult, and the esoteric. So Stills had obviously passed on, but Freddie Cook took the bull by the horns, as we say, and drove the Church of Lucifer upwards and onwards. The membership grew vastly. I think it was ranking somewhere in like 10,000 in the time when the internet was in its infancy. And there was a lot of followers, and a lot of very accredited followers. In fact, at the time of the very beginning, I mean, one such person that was a follower and also a member of the COL was Marilyn Manson. Time passed on, and Freddie Cook, as it grew, he seemed to have lost a bit of control with the fact that it was growing very fast. Also, he was a bit disappointed with the kind of people that were now entering the ranks of the COL and the people around him that were supposedly propagating Luciferianism to the masses. So he took it underground for some time, and then he dispelled it. Freddie also is an author, so he continued writing books, besides being a mystic himself. And as time went by, he discovered my writings. I was obviously writing back in 2015. Luciferianism was one of those topics that I was obviously writing about, something that I learned through my mentors. And I have always said this to everybody. Initially, I'm an occultist who has happened to fall into the path of Luciferianism. Luciferianism for me became like a gateway and also a vehicle on which I was propagating and delivering my lessons, my teachings to the masses. There were obviously teachings that had a connotation of magic, and there were others that were formally ideology. Freddie obviously resonated very greatly with what I was writing about the ideology of Luciferianism, and he reached out to myself and he said, listen, would you be interested in us talking and you reviving with myself the COL? We spoke at length, and we decided that we would revive the Church of Lucifer. And we started off, and obviously the fan base started growing rapidly, following which Reverend Stills wanted to pursue something very different in his life. He was also not a very well man, unfortunately, and he passed on the reins of the COL for the first time ever to someone who was non-American. So I took over at the helm of the COL, with the blessings of Reverend Cook, and continue to propagate Luciferianism across the world. So where are we now? What are we trying to do now that is different to what was being done in the older days? We have decided that we would pursue, and we are already registered and awaiting confirmation as a 501 registered entity, which would be a non-profit organization based in the USA, as it is rightly so, because in the USA is where the conception of the COL had happened. We are also trademarking, obviously, our emblem, because it is required and part and parcel of what one needs to do to have an accredited association, which will, in time, also, hopefully, attract funding from diverse organizations which would like to see Luciferianism propagated across the world. Now, what will I do with that funding? Many may ask, and many might wonder, what's he going to do with all this money? The money that will come in is going to go for the right cause, for the wrong cause? What's going to happen? I have always said that all the funds that come into the COL, once the administration expenses have been covered, then everything that is remaining needs to be going to a charitable cause. But what do we mean by charitable? I'm not going to go around and giving money to institutions that propagate to be helping others when there is no justifiable proof that they are actually giving the money to such causes. I would want the COL to be able to be touching, feeling, seeing where that money is going. One such project, which is at my heart, has always been at heart, and I have said this time and again, which I want to do, is a school of music, which would help everybody out there that could potentially be someone with heart and also inspiration and talent, but had no necessary funding to be able to achieve, where the COL would come in and help them in that regard. That is only one of the few projects we have in line. So we are well on our way, as I said, also on a program in this country. And I think this will obviously surprise and maybe shock a bit people around us, that I would erect a statue for Lucifer. And I would also indeed instigate a temple where people from across the world could congregate and come and resonate with that ideology that we have been propagating for the past 8 years.
Patrick, talking about Lucifer, who is this Lucifer? Is it true that he is the fallen angel? He is the light bringer? Is he a scapegoat? Can you give us some information about this archetype?
I think one needs to be looking a bit further than that, to be fair, because there has been many misinterpretation of the word Lucifer and as such of the character. This is not in vain. Obviously, this was done purposely by an institution which, in its way, shape and form, was hell-bent on indoctrinating people to the state of fear so that they could be controlled. Lucifer, in the eyes of the Church of Lucifer, in the eyes of Reverend Stills, Freddie Cook, myself, and most of those people out there that do practice and advocate Luciferianism as a way of life, is the angel of light, the fallen angel. But to fall, what is one actually falling from? Falling from trying to bring knowledge to people, trying to enlighten. Is there such a thing where someone needs to fall to do good? And if that is the case, where one needs to be fallen to be able to propagate knowledge to everybody else around you, then doesn't that raise questions about what the superior being that you are supposed to be encroaching and also confronting, what is that agenda there that has to bring about such a situation where we have a character, an archetype that is classed as fallen for helping, for trying to enlighten everybody else? In my opinion, Lucifer and Christ are one and the same thing. Now, a lot of people will probably have something to say about this point, and I have no problem in respecting anybody's opinion. But at the same time, people need to also be open-minded. In my opinion, in what we teach and how we foresee and how we envisage the whole thing about Lucifer, is that Lucifer is the divine fetch and Christ was the mortal fetch. In fact, they are both called the morning star. They are both seen as the light, as that which is there to lead mankind to a much more spiritual elevation than is sought in this third dimension.
When you said that you were going to erect a temple In which type and form, like a church or an institute?
I have always said that we do not class ourselves as a religion. In that case, that it's an ideology, and once you go and encroach into the path of a religion, you're going to become very dogmatic. We are not dogmatic. Luciferianism leaves everybody very free to interpret, understand, and believe that they are a god within their own right. Therefore, they are free to spiritually evolve. There are no such things as trends and as beliefs and as this is how you must behave. You know, of course, everybody knows morality, right from wrong. You don't need religion to tell you right from wrong. We are humans, human becoming, human beings. We don't need someone to preach to us, especially an institution that doesn't follow its own teachings about right and wrong, to tell me what is right and wrong. I know in myself what I do is right and what I do is wrong. And I do it out of what is called free will. So what we want to erect or have as a representation is somewhere where people across the world can come, congregate, and at the same time, yes, I would love very much so to be holding specific times where there are teachings that go on and actually people can attend and listen. And I have no qualms in having anybody from any faith, any walk of life, any race, any creed coming to our temple, to our house, because at the end of the day, what we propagate is for everybody, not for a selective few.
Because this teaching is not taught in the schools. And
that is another thing that I would like to and I'm glad that you bring it up, you know. I would love to see Luciferianism being brought into mainstream schools. I mean, I know that in the USA, Satanism has been brought into mainstream schools, and that has been accepted. Now, controversy, of course. But I'm very sorry, an ideology is an ideology, and if it brings something right and something more to the spiritual elevation of a human being, then it's not about whether Tom, Dick or Harry agrees or disagrees. It's about whether it's going to make the overall constitution of a society better or worse.
The ideology of Luciferianism, I think if it was packaged under a different name, it would have been not accepted, but obviously it would be followed. Because when you speak to people about the ideology, okay, without telling them this is Luciferian, they would agree with the ideology. Am I right about this?
You are absolutely correct. And I do say to a lot of people out there that do come and approach me and email me and write to me and send me messages, that at times the way they talk and the way that they resonate, the way that they bring forward their arguments and what the questions they're asking, they're actually Luciferian. Just they don't know it. They don't understand or they don't feel that they are Luciferian just because of the stigma that has been attributed to the name Luciferianism by no other than the Catholic Church.
Patrick, Lucifer and the Christ. Okay, I know you spoke about it briefly. I know it's going to be a controversy, but can you give us this duality about Lucifer and Christ? Are they the same entity, or the same archetype, or two different archetypes, the same entity with different facets, basically?
To answer the question, maybe in a way that the mainstream Joe public can understand me better without getting into details which might seem too elaborate for the normal person to comprehend. One of my mentors back in the day, when I was being taught about Luciferianism, told me that I was trying to over-elaborate something which in itself was so simplistic. And they pointed me in the direction of the yin and yang, okay? The duality, that there can exist one not without the other, that they are part of a whole. So for me, to answer that question is very simple. Christ and Lucifer, two parts, two sides of the same coin.
Okay. Basically, it's like magic. When we talk about magic, there is no white magic, there is no black magic. It's a tool. It's how you use it.
That is correct.
Correct?
That
Can
is
you
absolutely
elaborate
correct.
on that?
Black and white are connotations of people that would like to attribute something so that they can describe a particular type of magic, which is totally, totally unfounded and totally, totally erroneous. And why is that erroneous and unfounded? Because the black and the white, the color connotation of that, is actually the manifestation and will of the caster. If they are willing to do something right, or they're willing to do something wrong, it is coming out of the person actually doing the magic. Therefore, there is no color connotation. It is actually the will of the person engaging in that activity that gives that connotation or color to the magic that is being practiced.
In Paradise Lost of John Milton's, chapter 4, if not mistaken, I think it's in the 15th line, Lucifer said, better to reign in hell than to serve in heaven. Can you elaborate on that quote?
First and foremost, I mean, one must comment Milton on his great interpretation and use of words in that context. Better to reign in hell than to serve in heaven. I think what Milton there was trying to say is very, very accurately that why should one serve an oppressive entity when one could actually be non-subservient in a different environment? If any entity, it doesn't matter what that entity is called, because at the end of the day, a name is a name, and that name does not denote anything otherwise what we perceive it to be. So when we talk about the Abrahamic God, and we denote that God is the all-forgiving, all-mightiful, all-knowing, all-loving, then one needs to question, if you are omnipotent, then how come you have a problem with someone who is questioning your authority? How come you have an issue with an entity that has challenged that authority, not because they want to become bigger or better than you, but because what you are propagating is suppressive, oppressive, and is also controlling?
The name Lucifer. I know that in the original Bible, in the Hebrew Bible, Lucifer is not mentioned. The name is Halel, am I right?
Yes.
And Halel means the bringer of light.
That's correct.
Or the brightest one.
Yes.
Right? In the King James Bible, there is the reference of, the first reference of Lucifer. Oh, Lucifer, the morning star?
Yes.
If not mistaken. So, if the Catholic Church or the Christian Church did not invent this name, where did the name Lucifer come from?
One has to go back a lot, much further away from the Bibles, where Lucifer, Prometheus, the bringer of light, and so on and so forth, is something that has existed since the beginning of time. I mean, the church only hooked onto this in a way, shape, and form to create fear, and in itself to create their ideology of heaven and hell. But let's be honest. Which heaven or hell would exist where you have to pay for your soul to be redeemed so that you can enter heaven? I don't think that that is the kind of situation that should have been propagated ever. You know, in the olden times, the church used to ask people to leave their inheritances, to leave their monies, to leave everything they had so they could guarantee them a place in heaven. And then let me think again. I mean, you'd have to be pretty daft to think that you can buy your way to heaven.
Bribe your way to heaven.
Bribe your way to heaven, exactly. I mean, wasn't it Christ that said himself that it is easier to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the reign of God? And here we have the church telling you, no, wait a minute, give me everything you got and you're going to be guaranteed a place. I think they might have been talking about the Super Bowl. They were not thinking about heaven, for sure, because there is no such thing. And they have always, in every way, shape or form, demonized, ostracized Lucifer as the wrongdoer, because they needed a scapegoat to make what they were propagating palatable.
talking about heaven and hell. What is the position of the Luciferian Church about heaven and hell and reincarnation?
Let's start with heaven and hell. Heaven and hell is something that has been literally created, in my opinion, by the church itself. Now, the Luciferianism in itself believes that there are many dimensions. There are 11 dimensions. This is the third dimension, one of the lowest dimensions, and we currently inhabit this dimension. Our souls are not of this dimension. Our souls are part of the cosmos, of the greater being, of the creator and creation. Do I believe there is an infinite amount of souls? The answer is no. I believe there is a finite amount of souls, and those souls, in fact, keep coming back. Now, whether you come back to this dimension, a lower dimension, or a higher dimension, is all going to be subject to how you lived your life in the dimension you were brought in. So reincarnation at that stage is possible, is plausible, and is indeed acceptable. Because for there to be birth, there has to be death. There has to be an evolution of souls. They have to keep rotating. Because there is not an infinite pool of souls. This was an X amount, a huge light, a being which then transmuted and created these different beings across the dimensions. And hence, that is why we believe that when you find a person that you relate to, some people say déjà vu, some people will say, I have known this person before. What you are relating to is not what you see, but it's what you feel, and that is the soul.
So do you think there are other beings out there in the universe?
I absolutely think so. I mean, come on, let's, I don't know, but if one had to be intelligent, and this is where the Catholic Church absolutely dumbfounds me and absolutely confuses me. How can you believe that there is one God and one civilization in a universe which is so vast? Surely that we are not the only ones, and surely there must be other creations out there that could even have inhabited this earth prior and have moved on. Who are we exactly? What are we a product of? What was the story of Adam and Eve, really? Because these are all parables. You have to look and read between the lines. You have to find the gist. Really? Was there an Adam and Eve? And really? Did God take a rib out of Adam and create the woman? And did these two propagate and create the world? Come on, let's be honest. I think it's all a lot of bedtime stories, just to be kind. So realistically, one has to read between the lines and look at the evolution, look at what happened, were we an experiment, were we part of a creation of a force that was higher, more intelligent, more advanced than we were? And are these also the gods that we know, the various type of gods we have encountered and wrote about and wrote songs about, mythology and everything else that we aspire to, the creations, all these pyramids and everything else we have on this earth, which to date we are still trying to identify how we managed to build them.
Why gods should be jealous?
God should not be jealous. But the Abrahamic God is jealous. But why? Because he is a God invented by men. And man is jealous.
The Greek gods also.
The Greek gods. But again, if the gods, the people we are talking about are demigods, right, which is something between a human creation and a divine, then the attributes of the human remain. Since if you have a human, which we say, why are humans flawed? They are flawed because they unfortunately have the connotations and the emotion of jealousy, hate, rage, so on and so forth, which are not conducive to a proper functioning society, but they exist. So was it this creation, was it this flaw in what was created that helped and forced what made us to leave us to our own devices?
Patrick, talking about this subject, about life in the universe, currently this is a very hot topic, especially in the USA, when we have disclosure project, people are talking about what they're seeing in the skies. What are we seeing in our skies? What are these aliens? Do you believe that civilizations from another planet are visiting us, or is it something more, let's call it, sinister?
If we were to look at a more sinister cause, then that would lead us to question our governments, first and foremost, that they are putting something out there which is unknown to the general populace, and obviously that their agenda is not one that is pleasant. I do not personally believe that that is the case. I believe that we are, and we do have, visitations from other civilizations that are existing in this vast universe that has been created. Now, the question rises simply is, have these civilizations that we are now, or these objects we are seeing in our skies, have they actually been here before? And I think when we look at all kinds of documentation, when we look at all kinds of information that was left by our forefathers and by civilizations that have now perished but have inhabited this earth, I think they all lead us to understand and believe that definitely something more intelligent, more advanced than we ever were back in those times certainly did visit, if not inhabit, this earth.
Do you think that they have an agenda for us?
I don't believe they have an agenda. I mean, one would have to understand whether we are a creation of these so-called extraterrestrial beings, or were we already created in the sense of how we understand creation, and these extraterrestrials happened to discover Earth back in those times and definitely bestowed unto us the knowledge, the light of how we were to evolve and create and become a human, moving on to a superiority which we now seem to have technology-wise and in the medical field and in every other field. There has to be a direct relation somewhere between a superior knowledge and the human being. These advances did not just happen. This knowledge did not just fall out of the sky. There has to be a connotation of how we started to evolve and how we started to create, advance, and come to the point where we are now, the civilization we are nowadays. Now, a lot of people will state that progress is regress. But we do need progress, because without progress, we will always remain monkeys. And certainly, that is not a state of being we want to be entertaining.
Did we lost a little bit of our spirituality with progress?
We have lost not a bit. I think we have literally lost our souls. I mean, there's a very big difference between religion and spirituality. Religion is a control of the masses. Spirituality belongs to the individual. Spirituality frees, religion indoctrinates and imprisons. So the spiritual part of the people, and I believe that the people back in the olden days were much more spiritual than they were religious. Nowadays, unfortunately, we've lost both religion, because unfortunately the institution that was entrusted to deliver the religious part of our society has failed dramatically, because it could not even upkeep its own ways. And the spirituality, we lost it ourselves, because we became over-materialistic. We do not believe anymore in our souls. We want things now. We want things to happen now. Money has become the new god. We see everything as if this is it. Everything stops here, which is really total rubbish when you think about how we are constructed, how we have behaved across eons. Empires have risen and fallen, and yet we are still here. Something is well beyond just the human, mundane construction. And that is the soul, the spirituality. Yet, as you quite rightly point out, it's one thing we have lost. And we need to definitely refine that spirituality if we are to survive.
In the past, we've heard a lot of stories, especially countries like Norway, Ireland. We've seen fairies and gnomes and whatnot. I'm sure you heard about this story about the Anunnaki.
Yes.
Okay. So we live in a 3D world, okay, where everything is physical. What happened since then? Is the veil closing, or is the veil, you know what I mean?
Very good question. Is the veil thinning, or is the veil closing? I believe that the veil is thinning. I believe that we have now more access to what we would class as different dimension, parallel universes, and so on and so forth. But what is happening is that the powers to be are also trying to keep us dumb, restricted, controlled, because it does not pay them that we become enlightened and therefore start to see those things that they want us very much not to be able to see, understand, comprehend, believe. It is not in their interest that we become enlightened. And this is the unfortunate situation where we have foods, substances and everything else that calcifies the pineal gland and therefore the third eye. Hence we end up with people who are looking like zombies, walking around, not understanding what day of the week it is and where they're going with their lives. It has become simply people running around trying to achieve something which realistically, when they look at it, is unattainable.
Autopilot.
On autopilot. What are you trying to attain? Riches? There's only one sure thing in this world that we live in, death. So if you're going to die anyway, so why are you spending all your life literally killing yourself to become rich? Yet the richness that really counts, spiritual richness, the richness that is going to enhance your soul and is going to be your paying attribute to whatever happens next, we seem to have forgotten about. We seem to think it does not exist anymore.
In the Church of Lucifer, what is your position about karma, the karmic laws? I know Luciferian ideology does not believe in karma.
It does not really entertain karma. When we say it does not entertain karma, I think one has to identify what we mean by not entertaining karma. Karma in itself, as in the topic where something is going to happen to you because you did something initially, is a topic we do entertain. What we don't entertain is that we just sit there and say, you know what, we'll let karma deal with this. The Luciferian ideology in itself has always stated that should anyone harm you for no reason whatsoever, that is, that you have always been a person of character and have stood by good morals and done the right thing, therefore no person should upset that balance and try and do you harm for no justifiable reason. Then what we do believe, and also what I do teach in magic, is that you are that karma. When I say you are that karma, what do I mean? If someone did you great harm for no reason, they were capable of doing it to you, and you maybe could withstand such a devastating act. You are strong enough character-wise, you are strong enough in yourself to take the hit. But you did nothing. That same person continues to go and harm other people. Someone else might take their life. Someone else might have a depression and never be the same. Someone else might end up in a mental institution. All that karma comes back to you, because if you had the power to stop that person and you did not, Consequently, what happens becomes your karma.
Equalization.
Exactly, equalization. And therefore, I believe categorically that if someone crosses my path and does me harm for no reason, then I will become that karma. And I will be their karma. Because I will not allow that they will do the same to other innocent human beings.
The 11 tenets in the Satanic Bible.
Yes.
The 11th rule of earth states, when walking in an open territory, bother no one. If someone bothers you, ask him to stop.
Mm-hmm.
If he doesn't stop, destroy him.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the same topic about karma? Are we talking about...
There is definitely a very distinct similarity to what the satanic laws are saying over there. I don't want people to think that Satanism and Luciferianism are one and the same or the same topic. They are certainly not. Firstly, Satanism is a religion. Luciferianism is an ideology. Secondly, Satanism has a book, the Satanic Bible. Luciferianism has never had a book. It's the only ideology out there that does not have a book to represent it. The Jews have the Torah, the Christians have the Bible, the Satans have the Satanic Bible, and why should they not? But Luciferianism is not defined by a book. When we talk about divine retribution, because we are, after all, divine beings, I do believe that if someone were to cross your path, and I feel that LaVey there was being very generous in the fact that he said that he would firstly warn and then secondly act. I believe sincerely that if someone were to cross your path, and again they present a danger to yourself, your family, your loved ones, then the danger, it is within your right to deal with it in any way you see appropriate and in what capabilities that have been bestowed upon you.
Patrick, have you ever thought of writing a book?
To be honest, across the years, especially the last 5, 6, 7 years, a lot of people have asked me to release books. I have released many lessons that are there for free. They're on the internet, they're on our websites. Anyone that wants to go to my profile, even on Facebook, will find links to our YouTube channel and also to our main sites, which is the Church of Lucifer and patrickgaffiero.com. patrickgaffiero.com deals more with subjects that are derivative of the occult world, occult practices and occult sciences. Obviously, the Church of Lucifer, more the ideology and some aspects of the occult, be it sex magic, sigil magic, and these kind of things. Yes, it is something that I have to consider, and certainly I have to bring to fruition at some point in my life, because it is a necessity, it's a need, it's a want, it is desired by many people out there, and I feel that it would be wrong of me to deprive these people of doing such a thing. So at some point in time, I will have to contact a publishing agent and therefore fulfill this wish, both mine and that of my audience.
And how about going out for politics?
That's a question. I've been asked that many times again across the years by people who have read and followed me. And they would say, well, why don't you go out in politics? Because we think, you know, you can really influence people in the right manner, and you bring something very different and fresh to the political sphere, that of spirituality, something that politicians, again, unfortunately, seem to have totally and utterly disregarded. And when you disregard the spiritual well-being of your society, you are creating a vacuum that could potentially backfire tremendously, as we are seeing currently with the state of this country and many other countries across the world. Would I entertain it under the right auspices, with the right theme and the right people behind me? Then the answer would have to be yes.
Very interesting. If you go out for politics, how would you incorporate spirituality with politics to help people elevate their moral values?
Very good question. I think when we look at the status quo, obviously of this island, we have to talk about this island because this is where we inhabit, it's where we reside currently. I think it is a common agenda across the world. But let's talk about these islands. When we look at the state of affairs the amount of suicides that we are experiencing, those that are documented and those that are hidden from the public for obvious reasons, when we look at the fact that the people seem to be hooked on one thing or another, we have a generation of up-and-coming people that seem to be needing all kinds of variations of medications to be able to sustain the reality that has been created by the so-called powers to be. The amount of people that I hear of that have to engage the services of a psychiatrist, children that seem to need help, people that seem to have to resort to one medication or another, and a country that seems to be hooked on illegal substances. So we are engaging ourselves in taking substances to alter a reality that is. Therefore, we are saying that the current reality is unsustainable. If the current reality is unsustainable, then one can only attribute that responsibility to the powers that are driving the country forward, and also the institution that propagates to be our religious instructor, our religious teacher, which should be pointing us in the right direction so that our morality and our affinity with the creation, or the creator, as they would like to point out, is solid. Solid enough that we can live a life without resorting to other substances to make this life bearable. So how does one go about incorporating the spiritual with the political? Now, that is quite an interesting question, because let's be honest, I mean, politics and spirituality, do they go hand in hand? I think spirituality or religion has always been a tool in the hands of some politicians. Now we need to turn that and make it an agenda where the politics actually and the politicians themselves believe that the spiritual well-being of the society they are representing is going to be paramount. They must not think that this is just a tool so that they can gain votes. They must make it an agenda where they invest not only in the well-being of the humans, of the people they are representing, in a way which is materialistic, but they need to go over and beyond in ensuring that the spiritual well-being of the society that they represent is also looked after and is also nourished. And whether that is by either implementing what is currently available or removing that what is not working and replacing it with something that will work.
Patrick, for closing our last question, what is your future plans for the Church of Lucifer in Malta?
Well, very much so. I would like to bring about what we always spoke, even on other interviews on local TV stations, where there would be a place which people could see as a place of gathering, where they could, if they resonated with what we do and our ideology and our teachings, they could actually find sanctuary and a home, somewhere where they could relate to and find that place of belonging. At the same time, I have always been very much wanting to propagate and bring forward the Luciferian teaching and its ideology, even into state schools, if that was something that was permissible. And I don't see why that shouldn't be permissible, because we teach all kinds of things in our schools. Surely, what is an ideology that is diverse but is actually going to contribute to the well-being of that person? Should they choose or resonate with that ideology, what wrong is it going to do? What is the big problem? Is it about another institution finding fear that people should be shown a different path to what they are propagating? And what is the end result? Aren't we all working in the right direction and the same direction? Aren't we all saying that we want the better for our brothers and sisters out there? Do we not all speak of trying to elevate, to instruct, to help people find their spiritual path. And if that is the case, then surely nobody should have a problem with a different proposition of a different ideology being represented and put forward to the public. So those are my immediate plans. Of course, the plans for the COL worldwide are huge and different. And as I spoke to you before, we are in the state and in the process of getting recognized as a 501 registered organization in the USA. That opens humongous doors. It opens a lot of doors that we would be able to attract funding in a different level altogether. Of course, funding is necessary. This is not about us becoming rich. I mean, I'm not here to ridicule or to put shame on any other institution, but I'm sure that the people out there can denote when an institution has become rich through their hard toil and one that is actually wanting to invest in their well-being. But I'll let people decide that for their own. I'm sure that they are clever enough.
Thank you for coming, Patrick. And
Most
thank
welcome.
you, Keith.
Patrick.
And it's been an amazing journey. Thank you very much. And I hope to see you all again.
Maybe we can do more things in the future.
It will be my pleasure, for sure.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.